All right, guys. So the purpose of this call is to better understand PropStream's list automator tool, as well as how to do some things like if you have a list of, say, 500 addresses and you're looking to find the owners for, how to upload that list and be able to pull out all of the data PropStream has. So super, super grateful that Burton is joining us. Burton is kind of the tour guide, product development wizard that they put us in touch with. So if you guys have any questions, just throw them down in chat and I'll kind of interview him as we get towards the end. But he's going to kind of give us just a tour of the product. I don't really understand the whole list automator piece. It's a new feature they rolled out, and then we'll just kind of go into open Q&A. But without further ado, Burton, over to you.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I can't thank you enough for me this time to kind of clear the fog a little bit with List Automator. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get that over to you guys. So for those that don't know, List Automator is an add-on. You can add that to your account by going into the settings and going to add-on services. And you will see the List Automator feature, except here you'll have a option which will allow you to add a certain package to your platform. Now, the beginning package is $27 a month, and it goes higher from there. But essentially, how many addresses can we monitor at a given moment? Meaning, you can, for $27 a month, host up to 2,000 addresses in what we call the new automated list section. And the list automator is an enhancement to the My Properties. And so for $27 extra starting, you'll be able to essentially monitor 2,000 addresses at a given moment, meaning every moment or every morning, we're going to make sure that any of these properties that are being automated meet your criteria. If it doesn't, it's going to do this, what you see at the top of the screen. It's going to say, hey, you sent here a San Antonio list of 2,000 addresses, and here are the filters within that list. You were looking for liens, it was off market, it had a certain amount of equity, had a certain amount of liens to it, or amount of the lien to it. As of this morning, 33 of them don't meet that criteria anymore, right? So this was designed to save money, period. Like, knowing properties
That's
being
freaking
added
sweet.
is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to know the leads that are also meeting my criteria going forward, but the real goal of List Automator was this very reason, because here's why. PropStream's been around for 15 years. I've been part of it for a good 7.5 now, and over the years of talking to all sorts of people using real estate data, we've discovered one thing, and it's that the moment you buy a list, it's static. Whether it's from us, whether it's from ListSource or any provider out there, the moment you extract it from their platform, it's static. It doesn't automatically update itself. If you bought 1,000 addresses, seriously, literally the next day, 100 of those could be on market, and you wouldn't know unless you bought that list again, or you had like a virtual assistant going through every address every single day to see what's meeting your criteria or not, right? So that was like just nothing in the market that would do that. So what we did was we did this behavior. We went to a provider, we bought a list of 1,000 addresses, and then we would just what we call churn and burn that list, which is we would market, whether it's 6 times, 7 times, over a certain course of time that each investor felt, okay, you know what? It's been about 4 months, we're done. We don't need to market to 1,000 addresses anymore, right? That is not the case anymore. We've now put an end to that. The goal with List Automator is when you have a list of 2,000 addresses, we're going to continuously monitor that every day and tell you, hey, these properties got to get deleted. So the idea is you delete them first, or you migrate them into a different list, maybe like a follow-up list. And then after you do that, what's left over, in this case, there's going to be 244 properties left, or 2,044 properties left. So those 2,044 properties is what I'm going to be spending time on following up with, right? So now if I send another wave of postcards, I'm not sending 2,077. I'm only sending 2,044. And it's those small little increments that's going to save us money over time. So let's just do some math here. If postcards were about 50 cents a piece, I know some of us can probably get cheaper prices, but let's just keep it in an average. Let's say postcards 50 cents a piece, that includes postage. I just saved myself 16 bucks for just paying 27 bucks a month. And so today, again, I would be sending 244 postcards rather than 277. So that's how the system is saving you money. So List Automator, that was the main thing. But List Automator is a 3 upgrade system, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is when you add List Automator, you're going to get these 10 new boxes here at the top, beginning with vacant, and all these other categories. So vacant, high equity, low equity, negative equity. So that's the first update. So when you access this automator, when you pay for it, not only do you get that automate feature I just showed you, but you get these 10 boxes here at the top. And why is that? It's so that you can isolate leads within a list that you've built either recently or in the past. So if I went in the system and let's say a while ago, I built a list of liens that are in Dallas County, right? So now that I've built this list, it's telling me of the 91 properties I have, all of which meet this elaborate filter here, there are these categories within that list. 7 of them are vacant. 91 of them have high equity because that's what I asked for. But now one of them is in pre-foreclosure. One of them has an auction, and so forth. So essentially, I'm able to isolate properties within a already existing marketing list to create essentially a list within a list, right? So I can click on, let's say, my main folder that has every one of my results in it, and it's going to break down all of my properties into each individual categories. And then what I can do is I can say, okay, after I choose a category, I want to look at these 46 low equity properties, and not just the 46, but I want to refine that list. So I want to look for the 46 properties that are off market and individually owned by a person. And then when I'm done doing that, I can now essentially apply that list or that filter, and it tells me what my results are, right? So it's okay, you have this remaining. Now nothing changed here, so everything seems to fit here, but maybe I want someone with 10 years of ownership or more. And then so after applying that, I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and 43. So without ever deleting my original list, it allows me to refine one given category of those 10 new boxes. We call them the summary boxes. It's just saying, hey, these are the categories within a marketing list that you just selected. Now, not only do we isolate these very 10 categories and allow you to refine it to create a list within a list, but you can completely replace it. So if you don't care for like auctions, for example, you can just go in here and say, you know what, I just want to remove that period. Rather, what I'm looking for are tired landlords, right? Tired LLs. And so in the 53 results I have, I'm looking for a non-owner occupied property, and it's owned by an individual for 10 years or more. Okay. And so after I apply my filter, just like you would when you're searching within PropStream, you're going to hit apply. And now your filter is applied within this 53. And in this case, I don't have any results, right? So the idea is we don't want you to run back to the search page and have to redo that search. If you feel like your list of 1,000 properties that you saved 8 months ago may have something in there that you're interested in, that's what these 10 boxes will do for you. So they'll be filled out, you can refine them, or you can completely replace them to, again, isolate leads within your list. So that's the first thing that you can do. The second thing is what we just showed you earlier, which is to automate the list. This is the main reason why we create it. It was to be able to see any of your marketing lists that you've created, like this Dallas liens non-pre-foreclosure list I have. And today there was 91, but remember over time things change. So the new feature List Automator gives you this button here, which is to automate the list. And it's to essentially take any of these properties that you've saved or marketing lists that you saved and monitor it, put it in our new section. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 91 pre-foreclosures and I'm going to tell PropStream, do two things for me. When you're doing an update and a property meets this filter, go ahead and add it to this list automatically or another list, or notify me and I'll do it myself. So that's for properties that meet your criteria as we're constantly updating every day. And then what about the properties that are in your list, right? So there's 91 properties today, but what happens when those 91 don't meet your criteria? We can ignore it, remove it automatically, move it into another list, or the last option is I'll do it myself. And so in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say I'll do it myself. So now that we've selected a rule, what happens when new records match, as well as what happens when the records in my list don't match, we're going to hit save. And that Dallas County liens list is now going to go into our automated section. So now that it's in here, it's saying, hey, there was 91 as of this morning. Now that you've automated and we went through your filter, 5 of them don't meet your criteria. So those 5, what? Would you want to delete them? Do you want to export them? Do you want to maybe move them into a different marketing list? And so after I delete the 5 and we're down to 86, those are the 86 postcard I'm sending. And I just leave the list here because every morning, tomorrow morning, it's going to tell me if more properties need to be added or removed, right? So that was the second part of List Automator. First part, these 10 summary boxes that can be edited and refined or even replaced. Then you get the automate feature that tells you properties that meet your criteria no longer meet your criteria that need to be added and removed. And then the third is to be able, well, this is something that we worked on for years, but we were tired of people saying, what's the difference between you and so and vice versa? So we figured if you can't beat them, join them. And so we're the first of the kind to finally allow you to import an outside list into PropStream. So you can, just for the sake of this example, I went ahead and did that for you guys. So a few months ago before coronavirus hit, I went driving for dollars out here in Orange County. So here's just a few addresses that I saw that were vacant in my neighborhood. So I was able to take a total of like 260 addresses, I believe, on an Excel sheet. I didn't do it personally. I had a representative or an agent do it for me. But after I got them to put it on here, and so let's just kind of use these first two as an example, 181 Costa Mesa Street and 1592 Redlands Place. So right now in my properties, if I go to all saved properties, which is everything that I have saved, and I try to search for those two addresses, 181 Costa Mesa, there it is. So we have that result. So I've already saved that property and it's going to tell me that it's in a certain marketing list. So let's see what list it's in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually delete it from our, okay, so it's in my SoCal Driving for Dollars list. So here it is, 257. I'm going to go ahead and delete that in front of you guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this entire marketing list. So it's out of the system. All right, so it's completely gone now. And so if I go to all saved properties and I search that address again, there are no results. And let's go to the next one, 1592 Redlands Place. Let me search that just so you guys know it's not in here. So I'm going through my 35,000 saved properties. First one's not there. Second one's not there. Okay, so the idea was that you went to a different provider, or maybe you have a list that's been sitting in your desktop for many, many years, and you figured, is this still a lucrative list? It is. What you can do is you can now import that outside list or an old list that you had for years. What you do is you're going to hit the import list button and follow 3 steps. Download our template and just copy your list over to our list, right? And I've already done this. So this is exactly what you need to do here. So it's just address, unit number, city, state, and zip code. Once you have that, you're going to save that list. So we're going to close that down and save it. And that's all part 2. But part 3, we're going to hit choose file and we're going to upload that list. So we're going to go ahead and upload my driving for dollars list and we're going to name it whatever we want. So driving for dollars, hit save. And now PropStream is going to take this Excel sheet and it's going to connect its records to that Excel sheet. So in just a few moments, it's going to tell me how many of my properties on my Excel sheet matched. So as we're doing this, it should probably take about a few seconds or two. Does anybody have any questions so far? I'd be happy to
Guys, if you have
address.
any questions, throw them in chat for me and I'll walk them through them. So one question I've got, Burton, you can also get, there's also extra fields you can export if you've upgraded to the list automator, correct?
Yes and no. Actually, we included that automatically
Okay.
with a recent update. So now there is a way to automatically update your columns prior to exporting. Like in this sense right here, now that I've uploaded my driving for dollars and it's in the process of refreshing. So far out of the 260, 2 of them have been successfully matched. And it's going to continuously do this until all of my properties are being matched. So you see how it's continuously refreshing to see if it matched. It should probably be the last one, and then it's going to give me all of my records. So
You guys, this is going to make pulling your niche lists.
oh my God, this is a game changer because again, the most important part is this could have been a list from like 5 years ago. And now that I've imported it, what it's doing is it's taking PropStream's data as of this morning. And now my driving for dollars list is here. So all 200 properties. Now when I search that 181 Costa in this list, it's right there. And
Awesome.
I have all of this information, mortgage information, so forth. Now what you were referring to was now that like this information's here, I can, prior to hitting the export button, I can hit this edit column button here, and I can ask the system to essentially export any header I'm looking for, whether the header has to do with the lender or the header has to do with the agent that sold the property at one point, or maybe the header is the lien type that's associated on the property as well as the lien amount. So we finally gave the user like over 100 different fields to choose from on your Excel sheet, because that was a common request. It's like, I need this certain header on my Excel sheet before I upload it to my CRM, or when we're cold calling, our sellers, we need to see this number. So we finally just said, hey, floodgates are open. You choose what header you want. Just check off the headers that you like, hit apply, or apply and save it permanently. You can actually save out different layouts if you want. But when
Cool.
you hit apply, the headers will now be on your list, like the agent's name and brokerage name. Then you can hit the export button. And so by hitting the export button, whatever you had requests for is now going to populate on your Excel sheet. And so
Eduardo asked if the import feature only works if you're upgraded to the Automator. That's a yes, correct?
yes, that is correct. And the other thing to note too is it will deduct from your download import limit, right? Because in theory, when you're importing a list of 1,000 addresses and getting our data within about a minute, like you just saw, what you're really doing is you're searching each address on your list manually. Like if we didn't have List Automator and I went driving for dollars and I still wanted PropStream's data, before we created List Automator, what people were doing is they would take this address, they would go to our search bar, and they would seriously just search them one at a time. Once they populated, then they would save the address to a marketing list. So think about how much time this would have taken. 270 properties. I would have gone through every one of those in the search bar, hit save, then the next property, and then the next property until I'm done, right? And that's what
Yeah.
people were doing. So people, you have to realize that when you're importing into our system and you're taking our data, it's like you're doing a search. So if you upload 10,000 leads, you're taking the 10,000 from the month that you have if
You
you're
can
at the
simply
97.
increase the limits on
Correct.
the account if you need more.
That's exactly what you need to do. So if you need more data, just request it. You can ask for more if you need to. But just know that it does take away from your download. So
Yeah,
again,
you
very
guys are
important feature.
ridiculously reasonable on price, though. I mean, a penny a record compared to the 20 cents list source charges is pretty solid. Plus, being able to look one by
And
one.
it's a two-part system. Like I've used ListSource quite a bit, and it's a record keeping, record extracting system. Period. And the thing that people don't realize with PropStream is, yeah, we're the same data. Like we buy data from CoreLogic, which is ListSource, so our data is nearly identical to their data. We also buy data from First American, all these other national providers. We shop for data. That's what makes us unique. Is like we're like the Amazon. All right, we're not like the manufacturers of data, but we get it from everywhere, and we're the hub in which you can manipulate that data. So what a lot of people fail to realize is not only can you search a market and filter throughout, our 14 categories, or just create your own data or niche that you're looking for, but after you save it, you can skip trace it to get contact information, and then you can send direct marketing, right? Postcard, ringless voicemails, and emails. So if you do that in our system, which again, when you go to ListSource, you don't have the skip tracing and marketing. So that part you're missing out on already. So if I go pull a list from ListSource, I need to cold call it. I need to do some more research to get phone numbers. But our system is a two-part process in which it can generate leads, get contact information, and market to them. And then when the leads do call you, when they say, hey, Burton, I got your postcard and I actually want to sell my property, well, now I can just click on that property and analyze it. I can see the MLS details, if it failed recently, if it's on market, but most importantly, running comparables. I get to now tap into public records and MLS records to get an after repair value of the property. And this is something that most of our competitors, and again, I don't like the term competitors because now we're allowing you to bring their data in, but this is where a lot of the list generation systems out there struggle because they only sell records. They're not pulling data to help you analyze, the neighbors, the MLS that sold recently in the last year or 6 months. So
Quick question I've got for
that's
you.
what we do differently.
So we're very lazy as real estate investors, which I don't know if you've noticed that, but I know I've noticed that. So to make sure I understand this correctly, so if I wanted to monitor my entire county of 600,000 parcels and then only mail the ones that are changing on, say, like a weekly basis, let's say I'm monitoring everybody with equity and I'm just looking to mail to the ones that have a new lien or have a new bankruptcy or fail off the MLS, that's possible with this.
Correct. The way that you would do that is you would create a save search. So you would search a market, let's say Riverside, California, and then you would tell the filter. You would apply your filter. So in Riverside, I need non-owner vacant properties that have a lien of, let's say, 10,000 or more. And I would prefer the liens to. Okay, we probably don't have anybody in that range yet. So vacant liens. Oh, we only have 3. Let's look for everybody. Oh, you know what? It's Riverside, the city. Let's do county. All right, so there we go. Liens, vacant, and we'll do 10,000, 5,000 or more. Okay, so now that I've saved a filter, what you're referring to is you can save that search and tell the system. So after you hit close at the bottom or just hit filter at the top, you can then go to save search and save that filter. So Riverside, county, liens, 5K or more, add a description. You can even replace any of our boxes, but it's this feature that you're referring to be able to get notified. So like today I had 3 results, right? So if I don't have List Automator, because this is just part of your regular package, if I don't have List Automator, then what I can do is I can search a market, apply my filter, and then save that filter and then be notified on an immediate or weekly basis,
So
right?
that's huge. Even if you don't have List Automator, you can have it email you as new people hit your niche lists.
Exactly. And
Sweet.
that was what
Did
it
not
is.
know that.
Now, with List Automator, if you have that, what it does is after you search and filter, and then you save that list. If I save this list, Riverside liens 5K, right? When you save that list, we're saving your filter. We know what filter you applied for these results. So when I go to my properties and I look at that Riverside lien list, right, with those 3 results, we know the filter that you used to generate that. So now that we've captured that filter, that's now when I can automate that list every day. So without having to get an email notification, I can just tell the system, just automatically keep properties to this list while also removing properties from this list that don't meet my criteria. So now that I've searched an area, applied a filter, and saved that marketing list, now my list on a day-to-day basis is being monitored. So today there's 3, but tomorrow this list could be 7, or this list could be 1, or this list could be 0.
Got it.
And that's essentially the goal there.
Got it. So I could, because I'm lazy, so I could monitor, say, 100,000 records in my market that are, let's just say, equity properties. I could then create some subsets based off of the extra boxes we get added of, say, bankruptcy with equity. And then
Yes.
I could automate those lists where those lists are always current.
That's correct. Yeah, anything within your My Properties can be essentially monitored. And again, it could be a property within an already existing list, or hey, you isolated something within an existing list, like those 6 high equity properties in that 13. And then you would create a new list from here. So it would be able to create a new marketing list and then automate that subset marketing list I just created from this list.
So I could do something like on that list, I could automate it and say when a new property meets that criteria, add it to a different list. So
Correct.
so if I mail, say, 1,000 records and then I say automate any new ones, I come back a week later and there's now 200 in that new list. We know those are new, fresh bankruptcies.
Yes, and what you're referring to, so after I choose a list, you can go to automate lists and say, hey, if I get any as you're doing updates, if anything meets this filter that I have, please put it in a different list. And I want you
Perfect.
to put it in this buyer's list of mine. And so every week, every day, as more and more updates come in, I'm going to see that even though this is from a buyer's list here, every day I'm going to see this Chicago pre-foreclosure list keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger because another list is adding to that, right? Because I'm automated one list and it's adding to I guess you would call it like a folder or a dump bin, essentially, where it's automatically just pushing in either the properties that are being removed from an automated list or the properties that are being automated lists.
Cool. Do you guys understand that? You guys following that? Give me some nods if so. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's super sweet. I mean, I know almost all of us have used your guys' data and gotten deals off of it, but I know we've also had the question of like, how often do I remail it? Or how do I tell if it's a new one versus an old one that's sitting in here? So one other question I've got for you, Burton, how often is the data uploaded?
That's
Like
a
how
tricky
often are you guys updating?
question. So it's a two-part process. We're a revolving door in a sense that like every day what's in our server or what's pushed into our server from a county MLS broker, USPS, mortgage deeds, we put into our system. So we as a company update every day, but the frequency of which each county, which each tax assessor's office sends us their data differs. Same goes with the MLS. So
Okay.
it's a tricky question, but you can essentially find a pattern within every market. Let's say if I go to Chicago, and I'm in Southern California, but if I go to Chicago, I can click on the MLS. Remember, every one of these categories comes from a different source, right? So if I click on MLS, today's the 12th. The most recent search or update on the MLS was about 4 days ago, right? So the
Got it.
last listing date was on the 9th. So in this market, again, there's going to be some pros and cons. Like I don't have a license in Chicago, Illinois, so beggars can be choosers. But to get listings from 4 days ago is not that bad, right?
Yeah.
Like especially if they're sold or just listed. But then when I go to the pre-closure, here I get to see that there's one that has an auction in July. But when I click on it, this one was recorded on the 5th. So this was a pre-foreclosure that was pushed into PropStream a week ago, right? Now, with the county records, pre-foreclosures, auctions, foreclosures, cash buyers, liens, there is going to be a slight delay going to happen. Like just, it's the reality of all these counties being closed because of Chris. So start seeing like just a slight increase counties that do like daily updates with everybody now probably doing an update every other week or every other day. So just
Which I mean, that's still
understand
not
that.
bad. I think our concern was just we didn't want data that was, a month old. So,
Absolutely. And then you have to be careful with any of our category, like with just any categories in general, because this is just raw data. Like if you want to look for a cash buyer in Chicago, you got to filter it because if you don't filter it, remember, we've been collecting data for 15 years. So here at the very last page, I have buyer from 1900. I don't know about sending a postcard to this person that bought a
you
property
still
almost
buying?
200 years. Exactly, right? Are you still alive? Like, and that's the thing. So our system does require you to heavily filter it.
Yep.
And I want to leave off with this point. But you know what? Before I do that, did you have any other questions revolving
So
that?
I've got one more. So David asked, can you automate off of the summary boxes as well? So say I want everyone that's added to the buyers list you were just on, but only if it's also added to the high equity summary box.
Yeah. So I'm in the buyers list. Here are the buyers that own a property with high equity. I can click on those 29. I can check them off, add it to a new marketing list. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to a new marketing list, right? Edited buyers lists. And now that I've isolated those 29 and I've got my edited buyers lists of those 29 properties, I can now automate it. So yeah, you can definitely, as long as you put it into a separate marketing list, you can then automate it going forward.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. What was your last point you wanted to leave us with? And we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, my last point is I have this philosophy, and if you guys have seen some of the other videos I've done, but just remember a lead is not a list. A lead is a problem. And I emphasize that because we're in a situation now where things are kind of shifting a little bit. And just as my 2 cents, right? This coronavirus is unprecedented. And what I'm seeing is that it has granted sort of a grace period to certain categories. Like, for example, the people are in pre-foreclosure auctions. You're going to notice things are going to get delayed. Like, I'm sure this property that was supposed to be auctioned on April 27th probably never happened, right? As a matter of fact, if I click on it, we probably can see that it never sold because the auction probably never happened. So what I've discovered is that in this situation, people with a distress notice, pre-foreclosures, liens, divorces, bankruptcies, there's a delay in that process. So what does that mean to us investors? It means that these individuals that we're calling that have a lien, a pre-foreclosure, and auction date have a grace period. Like, they have more time now. So they have more time to say no to us, right? So our system over the last 15 years, what we wanted to do was create a system in which you can identify a problem and not just a list. So for example, in this situation, while these people with a distressed list have more time, meaning they're going to say no to me, well, then who's suffering in this situation? If these people in pre-foreclosure and people have liens and bankruptcy have more time now, then someone's affected by it, right? There's always two sides to the spectrum. And what I've discovered now is where people that were in pre-foreclosure were the motivation, now it's the landlords with mortgages that are the motivation. Because when 26 million people have filed for unemployment, there's about 26 million who may be renting from a landlord like yourself who now can't pay you, right? Let's say you're expecting your $1,500 every month. I lost my job. I'm renting from you. I can't pay you. How are you going to pay that $1,500, right? And so that's what I want to leave you guys off with, is that you want to use our filter to identify a problem. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm going to go into Riverside County and I'm going to block out all of the lists that you guys would normally pull. Like, if you pull vacant properties, I'll look for an occupied property. While you pull a failed listing, I'll just make sure it's not on market, right? When you're doing pre-foreclosures, I'll stay away from pre-foreclosures. When you're doing liens and bankruptcies and divorces, I'll suppress those categories. I'll stay away from them. And while you're looking for free and clear and cash buyers from 10 years ago, or people that own their own property and putting notes on their own properties, I'll stay away from all of that. So now that I've blocked all the lists that investors are usually aiming for, this is where the fun begins, because all I have to do is build a predicament. And here's the predicament: it's a non owner occupied property. You're cash flowing it, and there's a tenant in there. It's a residential single family property that's about 30 years or older now. That's another form of leverage. So not only are you not occupying this property and you're renting it out to someone who may or may not have lost their job, but the building's already 30 years old too, right? And you're an individual, so you're not even a corporation or an LLC. You're just a person who's been doing this for 10 years or more. And this is where that whole tired landlord comes in, right? Why in the last 10 years haven't you created an LLC or a corporation, right, to take advantage of these tax benefits? Rather, for the last 10 years, you've been renting out a property under your name, right? And the last thing I'm going to do is, there is a saying that my mentor told me, which is that people live paycheck to paycheck. I was one of them. But there's also landlords that live rent to rent, right? Because they got to pay that
Oh
Mercedes
yeah.
Benz. So what I'm doing is I've blocked out every public record that you would look for, but I'm looking for a non-owner occupied property who has a tenant. Building is 30 years old. It's an individual that owns that property for 10 years or more. Heck, probably doesn't even live in the same state for that matter. Maybe lives in Arizona or Washington. But here's the pain breaker right here: they have one mortgage on that property as well. So this is a problem. I'm not saying that 569 homeowners I just found are going to want to sell their property, but what I'm looking for is that within the 569, there's someone who has owned the property for 20 years or more, 10 years or more, but they have a mortgage that they need to pay for on a monthly basis, right? So every one of these has a mortgage that needs to be addressed. Like, for example, this year, Claude, who lives in Oregon, and Brenda, they have a mortgage on their California property, and it's occupied by someone. Someone's living there, or someone's renting it out. But see, that person that's renting it out is probably paying more than $1,100. It's California prices. They're probably paying 2,000 something dollars a month just to rent out this property, right? But if these renters are the ones that lost their job, one of the 26 million that filed for unemployment, well, this cash flowing property now just became a liability to Claude and Brenda, right? because now who's going to take care of that mortgage that they need to get paid on a monthly basis? As a matter of fact, let's do some more research. If I take their address that they live in, Claude and Brenda, and I search it, because I'm a very nosy guy. Claude and Brenda. Oh, shoot, totally lost that property there. But what I was gonna do is actually search their property in Oregon and see if they had a mortgage on that property in Oregon, right? Because now I know here's a landlord who has a mortgage in their actual home and a mortgage in their cash flowing property, and so they are definitely needing that tenant to pay that California rent, because if not, now Brenda and Claude have to pay for their mortgage in Oregon and for their mortgage in California. And so, guys, that's what I wanted to leave you off with, is that you'll have fun with PropStream when you realize that a lead is not a list, a lead is a problem. And for example, in Riverside County, there are people that are sitting on 3 mortgages and they're individuals, right? That's a problem. If I buy notes, if I do creative seller financing, there's 2,700 properties with 3 mortgages I can consolidate some way or another, or get them out of their situation. If they have enough equity, I can just buy them out, right? So that is what I wanted to leave you off with, is that it's not just a black and white system where you just, hey, I want to look for pre-foreclosures, or I want to look for, I want to look for a problem, go into our filter and build that problem, and then you'll find these hidden gems that people aren't looking for, um, period, right? So I'll leave you guys off with that.
Very, very cool, man. Super, super helpful. Not a list I would have thought to have done either. So really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. Awesome, man. I think that's all we've got. I appreciate you kind of pouring into us, showing us the ropes with the tool. My lazy self is going to go monitor my entire 9 counties I operate in, test it, and see how it goes.
Definitely. And then in about less than a month, we should be releasing our mobile application.
Oh, cool.
We were going to release in April, coronavirus hit, and we figured we just refined it a little bit longer. We took the extra 2 months to get it up and running. So hopefully by the second week of June, you guys should see our very ambitious mobile application, which will do pretty much what all the other mobile apps are doing, driving for dollars. But we're going to call this PropStream in your pocket. Like, you can do everything that I just showed you at the comfort of your smartphone. So just look out
Cool.
for that.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. You
All
guys
right.
have a
See you
great
guys.
day.